The White House is pausing federal grants and loans starting today as President Donald Trump's administration begins an across-the-board review of its spending, causing some confusion and panic among organizations that rely on Washington for their financial lifeline. Joining us now to talk more about this is Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren. Thank you for being with us this afternoon.
Yeah.
So I wanted to get your take on this freeze of all the federal grants and loans. It affects millions of people, many here in the Bay Area. Anything from Meals on Wheels, some Head Start programs are also on pause. Do you have any reassurance that you can give your constituents, our viewers, about whether or not they will see this money again?
Well, what the president has done, I think, is pretty clearly illegal. Congress has appropriated these funds, and he's required under law to see that the laws are faithfully executed. There have been numerous cases since the Nixon presidency indicating that what he's doing is illegal. Now, we now have a right-wing Supreme Court. Do they plan to overturn half a century of case law? You know, who knows with those guys. But for now, we are going to fight this as best we can. Lawsuits have already been filed. I started getting texts early this morning from around the country, other members of Congress, where Head Start operations are laying people off because of the cuts in funding to community health centers and federally qualified health centers. Some clinics may be closing. Food for the nutrition program for pregnant women, funding for elementary schools and Title I, funding for disabled students under the IDEA Act. I mean, among many others, domestic violence programs or shelters that are going to have to close and lay off all their employees. It's really outrageous. And, President Trump can review all he wants. And if he has recommendations, he can come to the Congress to make changes, propose changes to the law. But what he's doing here is wrong and illegal.
So is the only way to get these programs back, to unfreeze this funding, is to file lawsuits and take these policies and the Trump administration to court?
That's already being done. And I don't know how soon the court will act. If, the lower courts are bound to follow existing law, and the law is that this is illegal. Now, maybe that right-wing Supreme Court wants to change the law, but until they do, I'm hopeful that the lower courts will follow what has been a half century of precedent.
And I only have you for another minute here, but I wanted to also get your take on these immigration sweeps that have happened across the country. Some 2,000 people arrested across the country, some here even in the Bay Area. What do you think of this latest executive order, and are you standing with it, or are you trying to fight against it?
Well, when the president said he wanted violent criminals to be removed, so does everyone else. I mean, that's nothing new. The idea that we would send ICE agents, running through schools and running through churches is a big change that I think is very unwise. And you have to think also what he included in his order was a proposed a change in the Constitution that you can't change by executive order, that people born in the United States would no longer be American citizens. I mean, that's directly contrary to the 14th Amendment. So he's clearly on a rage and doesn't really much care what the Constitution says.
Well, Representative Zoe Lofgren, I'm glad you could join us this afternoon on short notice to go over these two big stories we're following this afternoon. Appreciate your time.
You bet.